Hello, my name is Robyn Wallace. I'm here today to tell you about ALS, a motor neuron disease. Now, I'm a caregiver and wife to a man who was diagnosed 2 years ago. First, I want to give you some background on ALS. It was first identified in Paris in 1869, named after Charcot's disease. It wasn't until 1939 when Gehrig, a famous first baseman for the New York Yankees, was diagnosed that it was given national and international attention. Throughout Lou Gehrig's career, he was a symbol of indestructibility, known as the Iron Man of baseball. He died June 2, 1941, just 2.5 short years after his diagnosis. Now, to this day, the disease is still associated with his name, often referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease. Now, in other countries, ALS is more commonly known as motor neuron disease. The causes of ALS are unknown and holds many different symptoms and effects per patient, a little different than from one patient to another, rather location of the symptoms, as well as the progression of the disease itself. Now, basically, ALS is diagnosed by ruling out other possible diseases that may show similar symptoms, like Lyme disease or even heavy metal toxicity. Generally, by the time the diagnosis has been made, the patient has from 1 to 5 years of life expectancy. It is said to be very rare that ALS affects the mind's ability to function. In other words, still be able to think and know what's going on around you. Think about watching a program, or if you love somebody or miss somebody, those functions are still intact. Now, as this disease progresses and begins to weaken and paralysis sets in and spreads to the muscles of the body, making movement, speaking, swallowing, even breathing impossible, causing the patient to become locked into their body. Now, through the use of external methods like a ventilator to breathe, as well as a tracheotomy to relieve obstruction to breathing and feeding tube to eat, it all allows the patient to live longer, but in a sense they lose quality of life. They're using these different techniques and things to live by and through. Now, it is said that 2 people per 100,000 are diagnosed per year in the United States and in Europe, and it is also said that there are about 30,000 Americans diagnosed per year. However, this number has been growing since more attention has been raised to ALS, since more funds have been available to research and care. It is thought to be near 50,000 people per year. ALS is not a rare disease, but a fast-progressing disease, making the number of patients at a given time low due to the rapid mortality rate. In other words, they don't live long enough to accumulate large numbers like cancer and other diseases. Now, there's also the option of where there's many misdiagnosed deaths. Sometimes people pass away but are diagnosed with something else instead of ALS, in general terms such as respiratory failure, which could also have other underlying health conditions to promote that. Now, with the addition of the resources and researches, like from the Ice Bucket Challenge that brought in a lot of money to advance that research and care, it has helped to prolong life for ALS patients. Some of you may have heard of Stephen Hawking. He's regarded as one of the most brilliant theoretical physicists since Einstein. Now, he was diagnosed in 1963, and he was only given 2 years to live. Now, still living after 50 years later. Now, there are many options available through costly methods to continue life with ALS, from the tube feedings, ventilators, power chairs, even computer programs to communicate by eyesight called eye gaze. Now, some patients choose not to utilize some of these methods, as it is their choice to live their life their way, like with the feeding tube or tracheotomy. Now, I would like to give you my personal insight to the disease as it has come into my life. I hate this disease, and yes, hate is a strong word, but this is something that I truly do hate, is ALS. I did not just become a caregiver overnight. I was a wife at one time. Then, as my husband began unable to swallow his food, ended up in the hospital from aspiration pneumonia. It was clear he would depend on feeding tube to live. He could walk, talk, basically function normally, even though he was weaker, but needed me to feed him through his tube. While dealing with this change, I still accepted the challenge to fight, to be a normal couple, to hug, hold hands, go for walks, talk through the night. Now, as I read and learned of what was to come, I knew normal life would quickly fade away. Next, his words became garbled, like a drunk and he wasn't drinking. Then his body began to wither away. He once was 200 pounds, 6-foot tall man, now weighing only 105 pounds. And this happened in a span of 1 year. Now, only 48 years old, with the posture and weakness of someone 90 years old. No longer a couple, now a patient and a caregiver. I still fight today, but no longer for normal, but for just another day. Begging and pleading for the medical assistance like the rich have, for example, Stephen Hawking's, and all of his modern medical devices, while praying for a miracle of a cure. I want to thank you for listening to me today and taking your time to allow me to bring some awareness to you about ALS. Thank you.